Hello, my name is Paul Wallace. I'm the Africa editor at the Banker magazine, and I'm here with Abdusalam Omer, the governor of the Central Bank of Somalia. Governor, thank you very much for joining us. I'd first like to ask you what actually exists in the way of a banking sector in Somalia, because it's a country that obviously has had a lot of negative news in the last few years, and it's a country that a lot of international investors will only know of as a failed state. But I was wondering if you could just explain a bit about what actually exists there in the way of a financial sector.
In terms of financial sector, there are no banks as we know it. So that's to say there are no commercial banks that are chartered by a central bank, because for the past 20 years, as you have said, there has been a civil war raging in Somalia, and it was difficult to constitute the central bank, and then by definition commercial banks to be chartered. But there are what we call financial houses, or some people call remittance companies, or others call the old hawala, that are highly motivated, that we call them the lifeline for the Somali people. I have done a study for UNDP in 2003, and we estimated that their total turnover of $1.2 billion. And now, 10 years later, some estimates put it up to $2 billion. So these are not really the small hawala companies as we know it in mom and pop's store. These are conglomerate financial houses that use high tech and that are efficient and very inexpensive to transfer. And they reach every corner of Somalia and Somali inhabited area of the Horn of Africa. A couple of those are already charter banks in the neighboring countries, and we expect to bring them back home and also to be chartered in Somalia. So there is no really financial houses as we know the banks, but it's not empty. There's 20 years they have been working, and they have been supporting the Somali family, and they have become a lifeline for Somalia.
Given what Somalia has gone through in the last few decades, your task is obviously a very tough one. Just what is it that you're focusing on at the moment as your priority?
We are focusing on three things. There's a lot to be done, but there are three things. We are trying to focus banking operations. Banking operations primarily have to be to establish a payment system. The whole economy of Somalia is based on cash, and that's not really a way to go, and that will not get us where we want to go in terms of economic development. Then we also need to focus on supervision and licensing, so we can attract commercial banks, both from Somali side and also from the international side, to come in, because there will not be any development without commercial banks. And finally, we're focusing on research and statistics. We need to collect a vital data and an important data, so we can make a analysis and help the economy grow and basically give direction to an informal economy that's big. I say it's big because the per capita income of Somalia is better than 12 countries around the world, even though there haven't been a government for 20 years. So there is something going on, but it's informal, it's not organized, and it's not going to grow any bigger unless certain institutions are developed, and one of those institutions have to be the central bank. And finally, one thing that we need to do is the country needs a new currency, and we are working on that too.
Do you actually, how soon will it be, do you think, before you start granting commercial banking licenses? And have you had any interest yet from international banks, or is it too soon for that?
No, it's not too soon. We have an interest from banks in the neighboring countries, particularly Kenya, and we have Somalis who organize themselves, and some of them already are big remittance companies that want to be banks. So we have quite a surprise the number of interests we see. And I'm not saying that all of them will get licensed because banks, commercial banks, as you know, handle other people's money, and we need to be careful that they're not suitcase banks and people will not take money and then flee. As to when do we think we will charter the first bank, I think the last quarter of 2013 is a target, and we will try to meet that target.
Governor Abdusalam Omer, thank you very much for joining us.